Pick up a 5-pound bag of potatoes at the grocery store sometime in October and look at the price, not the sale price. The real ordinary Tuesday price, $4, sometimes $5. You will pick up 2 or 3 of those bags before the month is over, and again the next month and the month after that. Add it up quietly over a full year. $200, $250, sometimes more depending on your household, just on potatoes. Not a luxury, not a specialty item. Potatoes, a food that people have grown in backyard gardens since before any living person can remember. Now consider this. 1 plastic crate, the open weave kind, sitting on a shelf at the hardware store for $4, filled with the right soil mix, planted with $6 worth of seed potatoes, and managed with one specific technique that almost no one in this country has heard of, can produce between 15 and 25 pounds of potatoes in a single growing season. Not from a raised bed, not from a torn-up section of your lawn, from a crate, 2 square feet of ground space, tipped over at the end of summer, and potatoes spill out like a small harvest that cost you almost nothing. The reason you have not seen this done is the same reason so much old growing knowledge faded out. Nobody profits from selling you a crate and a bag of compost. I will come back to that, because there is a part of this story that will sit with you a little uncomfortably once you understand it fully. But first, let me tell you who I am and why I know this method works. 40 winters in a Satoyama mountain village in Japan teaches you how to feed a family when the nearest store is a long walk down a cold road. I am Hiroshi Tanaka. Satoyama. That is the Japanese word for the zone where the mountain edge meets the farmland below, where families kept kitchen gardens, rice paddies, woodlots, and orchards, all working together as one connected system. You did not waste flat ground in a Satoyama. You grew upward when you could not grow outward. My father stored his winter potato supply in our kura, a thick-walled storehouse built to stay cool through the hot months and dry through the wet ones. Every bag in that kura came from crates and deep containers arranged along the north side of the garden, not from open, dug rows. The open ground was for rice and leafy vegetables. The crates were for the root crops that rewarded a specific method, and that method is what I want to teach you. I have gathered the full growing and storing system from my father's and grandfather's way of keeping a family fed through a mountain winter into a written guide called washitsu, root crops, preserved vegetables, fermented foods, pest-free storage, the whole working picture, adapted for a modern American home. Potatoes sit at the center of that guide because they were at the center of our winter food supply for generations. If you want the complete guide, the link is in the description. If what I share is worth something to you, press subscribe. This knowledge has been sitting quietly for decades, and I intend to keep bringing it out, piece by piece, for as long as people find it useful. Before anything else, tell me something in the comments. Have you tried growing potatoes before? In the ground, in a grow bag, in a bucket? Tell me what happened and where you are watching from. I read every comment without exception, and knowing what you have already tried helps me go straight to the parts that matter most for you. Now, the question worth pausing on is this. Why does growing potatoes the ordinary way in the ground so often produce a thin and disappointing harvest, even for people who do everything right? When you plant a seed potato the standard way, you dig a trench or a hole about 6 to 8 inches deep, drop the potato in, cover it, and wait. The plant climbs upward toward the light. Underground, tubers form on lateral branches called stolons, short stems that push outward sideways from the main plant stem, just below the soil surface. Those stolons only grow from the portion of the stem that is buried. If 6 or 7 inches of stem is underground when you plant, you get one band of stolon activity at one depth. One band of stolons means one layer of tubers. That is the ceiling, and you hit it without ever realizing it existed. You can water correctly, feed correctly, and give the plants full sun, and the ceiling does not move. It was set on the day you planted. The Japanese crate method tears that ceiling out entirely. It does this not by using a different seed or a different soil amendment, but by giving the plant more buried stem over time, gradually, in layers, as the plant grows taller. Each time you add a layer of soil mix around the rising vines, you are burying a new length of stem. That buried stem throws out new stolons. New stolons mean new sites where tubers can form. Done correctly across 3 or 4 additions of mix through the growing season, one crate can yield what 2 or 3 separate in-ground plantings would give you on a good year, and at harvest time, you do not touch a shovel. The whole system rises or falls on how you set the crate up from the beginning. The crate itself, the mix inside it, and the way you prepare the seed potato before it ever touches soil, each of those 3 things has a right way and a common way, and the difference between the two is the difference between 20 pounds and 5. The crate matters more than most gardeners expect, and the wrong container will undercut the method before you ever get to the planting. Not the kind of crate you see at a garden center with solid plastic sides and a row of drainage holes punched into the bottom. That is not the right tool here. What you want is an open-weave plastic crate, the kind with a grid of gaps across every wall and the floor. You see them in restaurant kitchens holding produce, in laundry rooms, stacked in workshops holding parts. Every face of the crate drains. Every face of the crate breathes, ensuring proper aeration. The reason this matters goes beyond drainage. When plant roots reach the outer edge of an open-weave crate and hit open air, they stop. They are air-pruned. The tip of the root dries and dies back naturally, and the plant responds by sending out more branching roots inward. This results in a much denser system. In a solid container, roots circle. They coil along the inner wall, and eventually they compete with themselves for the same water and space, stunting the plant in the final weeks when it should be swelling tubers. In an open-weave crate, the root system stays dense, branched, and productive all the way through to harvest. The size you want holds roughly 12 to 15 gallons of mix when full, about 16 inches across and 12 inches deep. Make sure it is sturdy. Most local hardware stores carry them in stock. Dollar stores sometimes carry them. You will pay $3 to $5 for a good one. It is a small investment. Buy 2 if you have the ground space. Buy 4 if you have the ambition to grow even more potatoes. If the gaps in the weave are large enough that fine soil mix might fall through in the first few weeks, line the inside walls with a single layer of burlap or a few sheets of newspaper. Do not seal the base of the crate. Do not seal the walls of the container. The air movement is the point. Now let's talk about the mix itself. Potatoes grown in a crate need a growing medium that does 2 things simultaneously. It has to feed the plant steadily through a long season, and it has to stay loose enough that tubers can swell and push through it without resistance. A mix that compacts under repeated watering will strangle the crop below the surface, while the vines above look perfectly healthy. You will pull the crate at harvest and find stunted, misshapen potatoes wedged tight in hardened soil, all the promise of the method lost in the medium. The mix I have used for years, and that my father used before me in his crate plantings along the north wall of our satoyama garden, is built from 3 simple materials. Use half-finished compost for the mix. Roughly 30% perlite or aged wood chips is the next key part. The final part is 20% biochar, or plain horticultural charcoal. Compost provides the steady, balanced feeding your potatoes need. It does not spike nitrogen the way synthetic fertilizers can, which can push the plant to produce enormous leafy growth above ground and neglect the tubers below. Perlite or aged wood chips are the structural material. They keep the compost from packing down as water moves through it, week after week. Charcoal, which my grandfather called sumi, holds moisture at a measured pace without letting the mix stay waterlogged. It also carries a mildly alkaline quality that suits potatoes. Look at the pH result here. You will find biochar sold at most garden centers, sometimes labeled as soil amendment charcoal. If you cannot find it locally, plain horticultural charcoal works the same way. Check your garden center. If perlite is expensive, aged wood chips from a tree service are a fine replacement. The test for the finished mix is simple and easy to do. Squeeze a handful in your fist and then let go. It should fall apart immediately if the mix is correct. If it holds the shape of your grip, work in more perlite or chips. A mix that holds its shape will compact, which is bad for your crop. A mix that falls apart will let your tubers breathe properly. For 2 crates, the total cost of materials runs between $12 and $15. It is very affordable. Fill each crate only 5 inches deep to start. Measure it out correctly. Do not fill it halfway to start. That is incorrect. And do not fill it to the top. This is the common mistake. 5 inches, set evenly across the bottom. Just level it out with your hand. The reason for that shallow start is the core of the whole method. But that comes in the planting stage. Now we will discuss the seed potato selection. Do not plant from a grocery store bag. Store potatoes are often treated with a sprouting suppressant, so they stay shelf-stable for weeks. They are not ideal. Buy certified seed potatoes from a garden center or seed supplier. It is much safer. A 1-pound bag costs between $5 and $8 and gives you enough seed for 2 large crates with some left over. For crate growing, choose a short season or mid-season variety. There are many to pick from. Yukon Gold, Red Norland, and Kennebec are all well suited. They mature in 70 to 80 days and produce reliably. Long-season baking varieties like Russet Burbank need more root range. Keep those for open ground if you grow them at all in your garden. 2 to 4 weeks before your last expected frost date, set them in a single layer on a bright windowsill indoors. This is called chitting, letting the potato pre-sprout before it goes into the soil. After 2 to 4 weeks, each potato will carry several short, firm sprouts pushing out from its eyes. That is exactly what you want to see before planting. Good luck with your harvest. If a seed potato is larger than a golf ball, cut it into pieces with a clean knife, making sure each piece carries at least 1 strong, firm sprout. Set the cut pieces on a dry surface and leave them open to the air for 48 hours. The cut face will form a dry callus, a protective skin over the wound. Plant before that skin forms, and wet soil can rot the cut surface before the sprout ever gets started. The patience of 2 days protects the whole season. 1 chitted potato goes into the center of each prepared crate, sprout facing upward, pressed gently into the surface of the 5-inch layer of mix. Cover it with 1 more inch of mix and firm it down lightly. Nothing more than this simple layer. You are not burying it deep. You are giving it a shallow platform to launch from. What you do when the vines climb above that surface is where the real harvest is built or lost. Step 4. The progressive filling method. The plant is in the crate. 5 inches of mix beneath it, 1 inch of mix above it. Now you wait, and while you wait, you watch. The vines will break the surface within 10 to 14 days of planting, depending on soil temperature and the strength of the sprout. Let them grow naturally without any interference. Do not touch them yet. The plant needs those first weeks to establish roots in the mix beneath. Water carefully during this period, just enough to keep the mix from drying out completely, nothing more. When the vines stand 6 inches above the surface of the mix, it is time for the first addition. Take your prepared compost mix, the same blend you used at the start, and add 4 inches of it around the base of the plant, pressing it gently against the stem from all sides. Leave only the top 2 to 3 inches of growth uncovered. Everything below those top leaves goes under the new mix. Firm it lightly so it makes full contact with the stem all the way around. What is happening underground at this moment is the thing that separates this method from any other container approach. The buried section of stem, now surrounded by fresh mix, begins sending out new lateral roots within days. Those lateral roots are stolons. the same underground branches that produce the tubers. They are not forming in the original root zone at the bottom of the crate. They are forming in a completely new band, higher up. That new band becomes a new layer of potatoes. Let the plant grow again. When the vines stand 6 inches above the new surface, add another 4 inches of mix. When the vines stand 6 inches above the new surface, add another 4 inches of mix. Press it in, bury the stem, leave the top growth exposed. Do this a third time when the plant gives you another 6 inches of growth. A fourth time if the crate has enough depth remaining. Each addition creates a new stolen zone. Each stolen zone creates a new band of tubers. Underground. A crate that started with 5 inches of mix will end the season full to the rim, and the entire depth of that column is productive growing territory. 4 additions across a growing season is realistic for a crate that starts at 12 inches deep. 3 is the minimum to see a meaningful difference over a standard planting. The rhythm works out to roughly 2 to 3 weeks between each addition. The plant itself sets the pace, and you must match it carefully. Step 5. Watering the plants. This is where more harvests fail than anywhere else, and the failure is almost always the same one. Overwatering is the primary cause of harvest failure. Potatoes rot in wet soil. The stem at the base of the plant blackens and collapses, a condition called blackleg, and the tubers below turn soft and foul before you see any sign of trouble above ground. When the leaves finally show the damage, it is too late to recover the planting. The rule is quite plain and simple. Push your finger into the top inch of the mix. If it feels dry, water. If it still feels damp, leave it alone and check again tomorrow. When you do water, water slowly and thoroughly until moisture drips consistently from the base and sides of the crate. Then stop and do not water again until that top inch dries out. In the heat of summer, in most parts of the country, that means watering every 2 to 3 days, not every day. In a cool, wet spring, it may mean every 4 or 5 days. The open weave walls help you. Excess water drains freely from every side, so the mix rarely stays waterlogged in decent weather. But a crate sitting in a saucer of collected water is a problem. Moisture wicks back up into the mix from below and keeps the base of the plant permanently too wet. Set your crates on gravel, on a few wooden slats, or directly on dry ground where water beneath them can drain and disappear. One more important note on the heat. Crates sitting in full afternoon sun during July and August absorb heat through their plastic walls, and the mix inside can climb to temperatures that stop root development and shut down tuber formation entirely. Position crates where they receive morning sun and afternoon shade during the hottest weeks of summer. If shade is not available, wrap the outside of the crate loosely in burlap. It costs almost nothing and keeps the root zone measurably cooler through a heat wave. Step 6. Preparing for the harvest. When the vines begin to yellow and fall back, the plant is signaling the finish. Do not pull the potatoes out just yet. Stop watering and let the crate sit completely dry for 7 days. This is the essential curing period. It allows the skin of each tuber to firm up and harden. A potato with a hardened skin stores for months without bruising. A potato pulled while the skin is still thin will mark at every touch and begin to rot within weeks. After 7 dry days, carry the crate to a tarp, a sheet of plastic, or a patch of clean lawn. Now carefully tip the crate onto its side to reveal the harvest. Tend what you grow, check it carefully, and remember that the work you put into the ground in spring belongs to you in winter. Not to anyone else, not to any store, not to any price that goes up the week you need it most. My grandfather knew that, now so do you. The entire column of mix slides out together. Pull it apart with your hands and lift the potatoes free as you find them. No shovel is required for this method. No garden fork is needed here either. Nothing to drive through a tuber and split it open before it ever reaches your kitchen. The looseness of the mix makes every potato easy to find, and the layered structure means they are spread throughout the depth of the column rather than gathered in one tight band at the bottom. Sort them on the spot. Large ones go to the kitchen or storage. Anything the size of a small egg or a large marble, set those aside separately. Those are your seed potatoes for next year. They are already conditioned, already variety true, and they cost you nothing. Now I will not skip this part because it matters. I want to be plain about what this method cannot do. Progressive hilling will not rescue a bad variety choice. Plant a long-season baking variety in a crate in a northern climate where summer ends in late August, and you will run out of season before the crop matures. The crate method works best with short to mid-season varieties, the ones I named earlier, because they finish their cycle inside the window the container gives them. Choose the wrong variety, and no amount of careful hilling compensates for it. The same limit applies to sustained extreme heat. If crates sit in unbroken full sun through a heat wave and the mixed temperature climbs past 95 degrees Fahrenheit, tuber development slows and can stop completely. The method works inside conditions you can reasonably manage. Step outside those conditions and the crate alone will not save the harvest. Honest is better than impressive. The method is real and the yields are real, but only when the conditions around it are also right. What those conditions allow you to build once you have one crate producing well is worth thinking through carefully. Start with 2 crates in your first season. Not 4, not 6, 2, so you learn the rhythm of the additions, the watering pace, and the harvest timing without managing more than you can watch closely. Plant the 2 crates 2 weeks apart, one before the last frost date and one 2 weeks after, and you get 2 separate harvest windows instead of everything arriving at once. The first crate tips out just as the second finishes its final addition of mix. A rolling harvest is easier to manage and easier to store than a single large dump at the end of summer. When both crates have proven out and the method is in your hands, scale to 4. 4 crates, each staggered 2 weeks from the last, runs from late spring through early fall and can produce between 60 and 100 pounds of potatoes across a season, depending on your climate and variety. That is a meaningful share of a family's annual potato supply, grown from a strip of patio or driveway that was sitting empty before you put a crate on it. For storage after harvest, the Cura principle applies in a modern home. The Cura was a thick-walled storehouse that stayed naturally cool, dark, and dry through the hot months. A garage, a basement, or a shaded outbuilding does the same work. Lay your cured potatoes in a single layer in a ventilated wooden crate or a cardboard box with the sides punched through for airflow. Keep them at 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit away from light. Check every 2 weeks and pull out anything showing soft spots before it spreads to the potatoes around it. Done right, a September harvest keeps through January without losing quality. Now, the part worth sitting with. The average American household spends somewhere between $200 and $300 a year just on potatoes. A single crate, managed the way I described, produces between 15 and 25 pounds in one season. 4 crates across the summer can produce between 60 and 100 pounds. The upfront cost of running 4 crates, mix, seed potatoes, runs to roughly $40 or $50 the first year, and almost nothing after that because you save your own seed each harvest. Nobody puts that calculation on a product label. The crate costs $4. The compost costs $12 for a large bag. The seed potatoes cost $6. After the first season, the seed costs nothing because you saved it yourself. There is no recurring purchase involved here. There is no service to schedule. The produce industry profits from you buying bags of potatoes every month, and a $4 crate and a bag of compost do not fit into any version of that arrangement that makes anyone money. That is the plain and simple reason this has not been shown to you before. It is not complicated at all for any gardener. It is not a conspiracy. It is just that cheap answers don't get advertised. My grandfather's Cura sat at the back of our Satoyama property. Thick plastered walls, a heavy door, a floor that held the cold even in August. The potato crates along the north side of the garden fed into that Cura every September without fail. He did not have much flat ground. The mountain took most of it, So he grew upward, and he grew deep in containers and stacked beds, using every surface the property gave him. What he told my father, and what my father passed to me, was not a complicated teaching. You do not need much ground to feed a family through winter. You need the right method and the discipline to follow it through to the end. The ground is almost never the limit. The knowledge always is the true limit for success. That knowledge came from his hands to my father's hands to mine. I keep sharing it because it belongs in use, not sitting forgotten on a mountain. The shopping list is short, and everything you need is at your hardware store and garden center this weekend. 2 open-weave plastic crates will cost you $4 each. 1 bag of finished compost, 1 small bag of perlite or a bucket of aged wood chips, and 1 bag of charcoal. 1 pound of certified seed potatoes in a short to mid-season variety. Set the potatoes on a windowsill today. Let them chit for 2 to 4 weeks on the sill. Fill each crate 5 inches deep with your blended mix. Plant 1 chitted potato per crate, cover it with 1 inch of mix, and wait for the vines to climb 6 inches above the surface. Add 4 inches of mix around the base. Keep going with the hilling process as they grow. Tip the crate at the end of summer to reveal your crop. That is the whole method. $4, $6, $12, and some patience. Tell me in the comments whether you have space for crates where you are and what potatoes you use. Tell me what variety you are planning to try this year. I read every comment, and the ones that describe what went wrong teach me the most. If this kind of practical, old, low-cost knowledge is worth something to you, press subscribe. Every piece builds on the last, and the next one follows naturally from where this one ends.